Maple Hill was a town wrapped in silence, hidden deep within the shadow of dense forests. The place was small, almost forgotten by the world, yet it carried a weight of stories that refused to die. Every street, every alley, seemed to whisper of something left behind, something that lingered when it should have vanished long ago. On the far edge of this town stood its most feared landmark, the abandoned Maple Hill Hospital. Once a place of healing, it had decayed into a skeleton of its former self. Cracked walls rose high like a broken monument, with ivy crawling over its surface, clutching the structure as if nature itself was trying to strangle it. Windows were shattered, some hanging loose, banging against the frames whenever the wind passed through. At night, locals swore they saw faint lights glowing inside, as though the hospital was alive again, hosting patients long turned to dust. The air around the building was different, cold, heavy, and uneasy. Animals avoided the grounds. Even birds refused to perch on its roof. Children dared each other to touch its rusted gates, but none ever stayed long enough to see what lay beyond. The elders of Maple Hill spoke in hushed tones, warning anyone who asked. "That place isn't empty," they said, eyes dark with memory. "It remembers everything, and sometimes it calls." Yet for some, warnings were invitations. And in the silence of Maple Hill, curiosity was the most dangerous shadow of all. In a story as dark as Maple Hill's, the people drawn to its secrets mattered as much as the place itself. Among them was Aisha, a girl of sharp eyes and sharper instincts. Where others saw ruins, she saw questions waiting for answers. Fear never seemed to touch her, or at least that was what she let the world believe. Her curiosity was relentless, like a flame that refused to be smothered. Friends often called her reckless, but to Aisha, mystery was a challenge she could not resist. She carried a notebook everywhere, filling its pages with sketches, thoughts, and tales she had heard about forgotten places like the Maple Hill Hospital. Her cousin Hamza was the opposite. Reserved, cautious, and easily unsettled, he valued safety above all. But though he lacked Aisha's courage, he followed her out of loyalty. His heart was a cage of fear, but also of guilt. Deep down, he hated how easily shadows controlled him. Whenever Aisha pulled him into her adventures, his instincts told him to turn back, but his pride kept him by her side. Then there was the caretaker, an old man with hollow cheeks and a crooked walk. His presence alone was unsettling. Once, he had worked at the hospital before its fall. His eyes carried the weight of secrets too heavy to be spoken aloud. Locals avoided him, whispering that madness had followed him out of the ruins. But he knew things no one else dared to remember. Long before the hospital became a ruin, Maple Hill Hospital was the pride of the town. It stood tall, its white walls gleaming under the sun, promising hope and healing. Patients traveled from distant towns to be treated here, trusting the skill of its doctors. But beneath that shining exterior, shadows were already creeping. Stories began with whispers of a certain physician, a man obsessed with defying death. To him, medicine was not enough. He wanted mastery over life itself. He pushed boundaries, conducting experiments in secret wards, using patients as unwilling subjects. At first, the disappearances were few, explained away as transfers or recoveries. But soon, families started asking questions. Their loved ones entered the hospital and were never seen again. The tension grew until one night, a fire tore through the upper floors. The blaze spread quickly, consuming the walls, but strangely, no bodies were ever found in the aftermath, not of patients, not of doctors. The town tried to bury the incident, declaring the hospital permanently closed. But people swore they heard screams echoing from the ruins, long after the fire had died. Then came the sightings. A phantom figure, tall and cloaked in black, drifting along the corridors. Some said it was the doctor, cursed to wander among the ashes of his crimes. Others whispered it was not him at all, but something far worse, that he had awakened in his experiments. The hospital was abandoned, but its silence was never empty. The night Aisha and Hamza chose to explore Maple Hill Hospital, the sky was restless. Clouds gathered like an army, swallowing the moonlight, and the wind carried a hollow chill that seemed to push them toward the gates. Hamza hesitated at the entrance, staring at the rusted iron bars that groaned as Aisha forced them open. "Come on," she whispered with a grin, her flashlight beam cutting through the dark. Hamza swallowed hard and followed, though every instinct screamed for him to turn back. Inside, the air was colder, unnaturally so. The moment they crossed the threshold, it was as if the world outside had vanished. Their footsteps echoed too loudly on the broken tiles, the sound bouncing through the empty corridors like unseen company. Paint peeled off the walls in curling strips, and water dripped steadily from the ceiling, each drop echoing in the silence. Hamza's light flickered across an overturned wheelchair, its wheels squeaking faintly as though touched by an invisible hand. He froze. Aisha, unfazed, bent closer to inspect the faded hospital chart still hanging from the seat. "It's just history," she said softly. "Nothing to be scared of." But then, from somewhere deeper inside, a door slammed shut. The noise was sharp, violent, echoing like a gunshot. Both of them jolted, eyes wide, breath held. Hamza grabbed Aisha's arm. "We shouldn't be here." The deeper Aisha and Hamza went into the hospital, the more the air thickened. It was no longer just silence. It was a silence that listened. Their flashlights sliced across hallways lined with broken beds, rusty four-poles dangling like skeletal arms. Then came the sound. At first, soft, like the shuffle of slippers on tile. Hamza froze, clutching Aisha's sleeve. "Did you hear that?" he whispered. They turned, but the hallway behind them was empty. Only the shadows moved, long and thin, stretching unnaturally against the walls. A few steps later, a faint groan rolled from a patient ward. It wasn't the groan of a building settling, but of something human, low, agonized, and alive. Hamza's flashlight shook in his hands as he tried to aim it toward the door. The sound stopped instantly, replaced by silence so sharp it hurt their ears. Inside the ward, shattered glass littered the floor. As Aisha's light fell across the cracked mirror on the wall, her breath caught. In its surface, a figure stood behind them. Tall, cloaked in black, face hidden in fog. She spun around, but the corridor was empty. Hamza's lips trembled. "Let's go. Please, Aisha. This isn't a game." But Aisha's gaze lingered on the mirror. The shadow was gone, yet the glass itself was wet, streaked with fresh condensation, as though someone had just breathed on it. And faintly, in the mist on the mirror, words were scrawled by an unseen hand. "You shouldn't be here." By the time they reached the old operating theater, Hamza's nerves were frayed to threads. The double doors creaked as Aisha pushed them open, the smell of rust and rot spilling out. The room was wide, lined with shattered lamps and broken trays, the once gleaming surgical table now streaked with black stains no time could erase. "Look," Aisha whispered, pointing to the walls. Handprints, dark, smeared, frantic, covered the tiles, as if dozens had clawed their way to escape. Some prints trailed upward, impossibly high, vanishing into the ceiling. Before Hamza could reply, the door slammed shut behind them with a deafening bang. Both of them jumped, spinning around, but no one was there. Their flashlights flickered, the beams dancing wildly, throwing their shadows across the room. And then, the air shifted. Heavy, suffocating. A distorted shadow stretched across the floor, long and slow, even though neither of them had moved. A low hum filled the room, vibrating through the walls, like a heartbeat that wasn't theirs. Hamza grabbed Aisha's hand. "Something's here." From the far corner, the darkness thickened, gathering itself until it formed a shape. Tall, cloaked in black, its face hidden beneath a pale mask blurred by mist. The temperature dropped instantly, their breath spilling in white clouds. The figure stepped forward, its movements slow, deliberate. The sound of its shoes echoed like bones cracking with every step. The phantom of Maple Heel had finally appeared, watching, waiting, reaching. The phantom advanced, its presence pressing against their chests, making it hard to breathe. Hamza's knees buckled, and Aisha gripped his arm, frozen between running and standing her ground. The figure raised a hand, long, bony fingers stretching toward them, when suddenly a voice shattered the silence. "Back!" The old caretaker stumbled into the room, clutching a rusted lantern. His voice trembled but carried authority. The phantom halted, its masked face tilting as if recognizing him. The air quivered, the hum turning into a low, guttural wail. The caretaker turned to the cousins. "Go? Now." But Aisha demanded, "What is it? What does it want?" His eyes burned with fear. It's not a ghost, it's the doctor. His soul never left. He bound himself to this place, feeding on fear, on the living who wander too close. Every scream gives him strength. Every shadow is his doorway. Hamza pulled Aisha toward the exit, but the doors wouldn't budge. Behind them, the phantom glided closer, the lantern's flame flickering wildly as though it too was afraid. With a desperate cry, the caretaker swung the lantern, light bursting across the room. The phantom recoiled, shrieking, its form rippling like smoke. In that brief moment, the cousins forced the doors open and stumbled out, running through the endless halls until the night air finally hit their lungs. Back in town, safe, or so they thought, Aisha looked up at her bedroom window. Her blood ran cold. There, in the glass, the phantom of Maple Heel stood, silently watching.